Can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, so
Hello.
in this episode, I invited relatively a new friend of mine. His name is Bruce, and I'm just gonna let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bruce. I'm a father, fiance, Hare Krishna, tattoo collector, sometimes podcaster, and mental health advocate.
Cool, and you're a straight edge too.
That's true. Yes, vegan straight edge as well.
Okay. First question I always had is, are you in a band?
I'm not in a band. It's funny. I always wanted to be in a band,
Yeah.
and I do play drums, but I never
Yeah.
really. I do, but I
Huh.
never really got into being in a band. No.
We go to shows and everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think I just never really found the type of people that I wanted to make music with.
Mm.
I mean, of course, I wanted to, make like straight edge music or something like vegan straight edge, but
Yeah.
never really found the crew to do so. I guess.
Was that big in Toronto? You said.
It was the straight edge scene was pretty big in Toronto earlier, probably in the early 2000s, early 90s,
Mm.
but not so much in current time. And anyone I knew that was straight edge in Toronto didn't want to start a band.
Yeah.
So
How so?
didn't work. Yeah.
Mm. So now you're in what is that again?
Oh, where do I
City.
live?
Yeah, you
I
moved
live
to.
in Newfoundland. Yeah, I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. So pretty a decent distance from Toronto.
Right.
Very much a different world, a much smaller city. But I think like maybe you probably read on some of my Instagram and other stuff. Like I've moved a lot. I've lived in a lot of
Yeah,
different places.
always moving.
Always moving. So it's not uncommon or unusual for me to be in somewhere new space.
What's up with that? Like, why do you keep moving? Is there a reason?
Well, yeah. When I was younger, like I was raised primarily by a single father, and
Hmm.
uh, his employment took him to a lot of different places.
Okay.
So I just kind of followed. But as I got older, I felt the need and the desire to be a bit of a nomad, I guess.
I see.
Like I really wanted to develop new things and experience new things, and that's made me kind of who I am today.
Do you get bored in one place if you stay for like 3 years or something? Because I do.
Yes,
Wow,
absolutely.
exactly the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
You
It
need a
gets
constant
boring,
change.
Yeah, I need constant change, and I think that that's a philosophy that goes in all of my life. That I always need change and evolution, and I never
Mm.
want to be stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, so which place has been the best so far for you besides the current one?
Probably Vancouver, British Columbia. I would say would be the best.
In terms of what?
In terms of just kind of overall quality of life.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, like there's the weather, which is beautiful. I mean, people like to rag on Vancouver for raining a lot, but the rain isn't so bad when it isn't so cold. Like where I'm from originally, it's minus 30, minus 40 in the winter.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta.
Okay.
So yeah, just dead prairies, super
Uh,
cold.
mhm.
But yeah, Vancouver kind of to me has the best of a lot of things. It's still a big city, but
I see, I see.
it's it's kind of calm. It's got its own character.
Mm,
I like
mhm.
I like sea coastal cities as well. I think those are really cool.
What cities?
Coastal cities. So
Oh,
like
like
cities,
yeah, the coastal.
Vancouver, San Francisco, yeah, that sort of thing.
Um, is it like only applying for? Does it apply for like? Oh, I guess Toronto doesn't have ocean, huh? It's just
Yeah,
like.
Toronto only has a lake, so it wouldn't be
Okay.
considered a coastal city. Yeah.
I only lived in Toronto, and I had. I'm not sure if I told you, but do you know what working holiday is?
Yes, I do
Mm.
know what a working holiday is. Yeah.
So I did that in Canada, and I originally wanted to go to the United States. Sorry, my Canadian friends. They always give me shit about it, but I always wanted to go to the States because of all kinds of music that I was listening to.
Yeah.
Uh, but my agency told me, well, America doesn't have working holiday between Japan, so I was like, oh fuck. So they recommended to me, why don't you go to Canada because it's next to America and I can visit America. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to Canada then.
Yeah.
but then listen, then I fell in love. And the reason I chose Toronto is because I wanted to stay away from Japan as much as possible. And I asked the agency like which place has less Japanese people, and they're like, well, Toronto. I was like, okay, Toronto it is. And every
That's
time,
funny.
yeah, every time like I was in language school for like 2 months, and every time a Japanese person approached me like, hey, are you Japanese? And I was like, no, because I wanted to speak English. It's mean, but I wanted to stay away from them.
Yeah,
But
that's funny.
in result, like I got better at speaking English, so I couldn't. I was already able to speak, but I couldn't. I wasn't advanced or anything. So yeah,
Mhm.
Canada helped me, and my best friends and friends there helped me. So anyway, how did you like Toronto?
I like Toronto. I mean, the reason I moved there initially was actually for the music scene,
Music.
um, and for the fact that Toronto has so many different subcultures of music, of arts
Yeah.
and culture, and that's what brought me to Toronto. I think at the end, to be honest, I kind of burned myself out from Toronto.
Uh,
Um, I was kind of ready to leave, but I definitely have a sentimentality towards Toronto and the cool things that Toronto has.
what was the coolest thing that they had?
Uh, Coolest thing is probably the amount of bands that they have.
Uh,
Whether they're local bands or like we've talked before, like bigger
yeah.
bands like Alexis on Fire or
Would you like to
um,
mention more names?
yeah, I mean
See
Billy
if I know.
Talent.
Sorry,
Uh, yeah, Billy Talent, Alexis on
Billy Talent.
Fire.
Mhm.
Like we've talked about before, the Flatliners.
The Flatliners, yes.
Oh, I mean, there's so many bands I can barely think of right now.
I even do you know anybody from Flatliners
I
personally?
don't. No.
I saw the guy in the Bovine, well, he was doing solo.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know who he was because I used to go there every Tuesday to see a free show, punk show, and yeah, he was just doing his acoustics, and I was like, I don't know this guy, but he sounds good. And I actually went to see Social Distortion in the summer with my friends, and I saw his band. I was like, oh, that's the guy. He was opening
Oh,
up
that's cool.
for Social D. Mm. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, I used to go to the Bovine Sex Club all the time. Uh, where did you used to hang out?
Uh, I mean, I lived in for those in Toronto or those familiar with Toronto, like kind of the Queen Street area was my biggest hangout. And Queen Street is like the kind of the area where there's a lot of shopping, where there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a bovine sex club. Um, there's lots of like cool venues in around there, and
Hmm.
that's where I used to spend a lot of time. I lived on Queen Street, so
That's amazing.
I spent time just like hanging out with friends. The barber shop that I worked
I
in was on Queen Street.
mhm.
So
You
yeah, I was
also
always kind of hanging
Barber.
out in that area. Yes,
Mm.
yes, also a barber. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, you do a lot. You do a lot of things.
A jack of many trades, yes.
Mhm. So, I guess we're gonna talk about veganism because when did that come about?
So, as a bit of a backstory, like I I have been sober pretty much all of my life.
Mm.
And one day discovered hardcore music and punk music and discovered there was this thing called straight edge, which for those unaware is means you don't drink, you don't smoke. Um, and I was like, wow, like that's totally me. But as I devolved more into straight edge, the more that I started to see there were a lot of vegan straight edge bands. And
Absolutely.
I didn't know anything about veganism.
Mm-hmm.
I knew really nothing about vegetarianism. I
Mm.
grew up in a very like Alberta is known as cattle country, so like vegetarianism is very not something you see very often. but yeah, the more that I started to kind of develop an interest in straight edge music, the more that I saw there was more vegan straight edge bands,
Mhm.
and that changed my life. Like a band that I'm sure you're familiar with, and for those unaware, it would be Earth Crisis.
Yeah.
Earth Crisis, you know, is a vegan straight edge band that
The
I heard, and I was like, yeah, the straight edge band, and I was like, wow, like this is. It's funny how like you can do straight edge for yourself, but to do something for someone else as like a means to an end would be veganism. You know, to protect protect the animals, and that really changed my life because you know veganism has been part of my life now for I guess about 7 years.
okay. Oh, it's been just 7
Um,
years.
just been 7 years, yeah. Before that, it was just you know a staunch meat eater, but
Cool.
I I I stopped eating meat like right away as soon as I read actually I read this book called Sober for the Revolution.
Okay.
It's by Gabriel Kuhn, I believe his name is, and it's a book about straight edge, but it has a big passage about veganism in it as well.
Oh, is it?
And I was on a bus to Vancouver one day, and I
Mm.
was reading this book, and by the time I finished my bus ride,
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm not eating meat anymore.
Wait, not just no meat or dairy and all that too.
Yeah, no meat and dairy and
I see.
cheese and all that. It just really changed my perception. And then from there on, I just started to search for, you know, more vegan bands and
Yeah.
um, just, you know, kind of got engulfed in how I thought to
Mm.
me being vegan is such a punk thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's such a defiance of mainstream culture. Even though even as veganism in the Western society has become more
Popular.
popularized, it's still a defiance in against, you know, what is
Yeah,
perceived the normal.
it's been going on since like in terms of punk subculture, it's been going on since like late 70s, whatever. Basically since
Yeah.
when punk started. Bands I remember like listening to Rudimentary P.L.A.P.A. I'm not sure if you're
Mm.
into that kind of shit, but not even just like hardcore stuff, like straight edge hardcore stuff. It always comes with veganism, it seems like. But like all kinds of subgenres of punk kind of held the brief of veganism, because Rudimentary P.L.A.P.A. is like more like anarcho, more I don't know, raw side of punk,
Mm.
and of course like hardcore pushed further. But yeah, it's cool. To me, it was some video I watched because my ex-wife was vegan, and she went vegan after she started dating me. So, uh,
Okay.
but I knew what veganism was because I was listening to Chromags and all that already, and I knew what. And I to me, veganism was like biggest fuck you.
Yes.
Mm.
Big as fuck you. Yeah.
And nobody really did that back then in Japan, to be particular. But and it makes your hard. It makes your social life very hard. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's easy in Canada to find friends or go out and eat, but in Japan it's still kind of hard.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you what being vegan was like for you, and you know how long you've been vegan, and
I have been vegan for I think 4 years or something.
oh, okay.
Because I started cooking. I always cooked with my ex-wife, and so I always cooked without animal products, and I just naturally transformed into the vegan, I guess. And she didn't like tell me what's going on. Like she didn't tell me like this is that and that. So you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that stuff. Like she kind of did her own thing, and I was curious enough to like check it out because I already knew what veganism was. But I always wondered why do these people don't eat milk and cheese because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't come from a dead body or whatever. But then,
Yeah.
I mean, you do research and you discover a lot of things, and that starting to make sense. So I was like, oh, I should do it. But first, I was like super hesitant. I was like, I can't do this. I was really a pussy about it.
Yeah,
Let's suck it
I
up.
think it can be a bit overwhelming at first, but
Mm,
I think what you were just saying, with your ex-wife, that like I have gotten previous partners to become vegan simply by
oh,
not
yeah.
by being like, don't do this, don't do that, but just by
Mm,
kind of leading by example, just being
yeah.
like this is what I do, this is how I find it. And I think people kind of, again, the case may be different in Japan, but people see like, oh yeah, this isn't that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of vegan restaurants we can go to. There's, we
So,
can cook at home once you learn. Like, I know some people that are so adverse to veganism or vegetarianism that they've never even tried tofu.
oh yeah, what does that mean?
And that they've never tried tofu. They've never eaten it before. And to me, that's a really weird, like, it's really weird to not have such a staple.
What? Wait, adverse? You say adverse?
Oh, adversity. So like
What does that
adversity
mean?
means like what's the best way to describe it? Kind of like against it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like just like not with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, so people who aren't with veganism.
Yes.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
makes sense.
and with a lot of the food that's associated with veganism, like it's weird to me why you
Mm,
wouldn't want to try new things.
okay. Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, I used to eat everything. Like, I mean, everything. So, um, I get it. Like, if you, I lost my thought. Sorry, go on.
That's all good. Yeah, I just like people do have that kind of aversion uh, to veganism, and I think personally the best way to get people into
Right.
veganism is by showing them just the leading by example. But I think a cool thing is like any punk kid or hardcore kid or even metal kid that I know that isn't into veganism, when I show them stuff like vegan straight edge or there's some vegan metal bands, like they're like, oh, this shit's cool, like I see this is pretty cool, it's a good introduction
Mm.
into that way of life.
Punk and hardcore always go hand in hand with veganism. I've never heard of any like vegan metal. Like, is that like there's a whole subgenre or whatever the community?
There's a whole subgenre.
Really?
Honestly, I'm trying to think of a band right now. There's a band from Australia, and actually there's a band from Japan, I believe, that's also a vegan metal band,
Is that?
but
Oh, okay.
I can't remember the name of it right now.
Mm. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted. Yeah, but like absolutely. Like I see a lot of people like trying to turn everybody else vegan by just being in their face and showing footage, which is not a bad thing. If you think the lifestyle or the diet is good, you can tell people. But
Hmm.
if you want to like change somebody, you're not gonna just tell them to change.
No, it's not a very
General.
efficient way to do it.
Mm, mm,
No.
mm, mm. Also, I'm not trying to change anybody. I mean, the other day I met another vegan who asked me, "Do you want to join this activism I'm into in Osaka and stuff like that?" I'm not into it. And he was so like confused, like, "But why? Like, we should do this and do that." And I'm like, I, I'm doing my part, and
Hmm.
it's just yeah. So I don't want to be at. So veganism is attached to a lot of assholes and like
Oh,
negative.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
I could go on
I
years about it.
I try to avoid using the word vegan, but I mean, I don't know. That's the best way to describe.
It is, yeah. It's funny because I find, and this is going to sound like a bit of an ironic statement, but
Okay.
a lot more common ground with some meat eaters than I do with some vegans. And I
Okay.
think what you said was very much true. There are a lot of asshole vegans, like 100%. There's a lot of pricks.
Mhm.
There's a lot of fuckheads.
Which kind I sometimes like. Sometimes it's like super like militant vegans. It's just over the top. It's sometimes funny to me, but
It
as
is,
a
yeah.
joke. But if it's the actual person who's like your friend trying to do that to you constantly, it's no, it's not. It's toxic.
It's toxic and it doesn't work. No,
Doesn't
it
work.
just
At
doesn't
the end of the day, it
accomplish
doesn't
anything.
work. Absolutely. If you're trying to accomplish it, it's not gonna. Cool. Well, I think what I knew was I think it started from Chromax. To me, to you, it was Earth Crisis.
Earth Crisis, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I heard about it. I heard about it through Youth of Today,
Oh yeah,
who talked about vegetarianism. But really, the band that really got me into that veganism was Earth Crisis. And I think, especially because like it was just such a fuck you approach.
yeah. Mm.
Like it was like we were
Yeah,
just talking about, like it's very militant, very like
absolutely.
fuck you. You know what I mean? And that
Absolutely.
was like that's what I needed personally. What I needed was like, oh yeah, like these guys know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. In mainstream, veganism is like seen as like this soft, um, naive type of
Yes.
movement or culture. But to me, it was super like just in your face, militant. Like do what I tell you, or fuck you, and I will fuck you up. Like tough guy, just douchebags. Like just in your same as Straightedge, because I'm not that into. Actually, I'm not that into positive bands. Like my favorite band is Slapshot, as you probably noticed. They are
Yeah.
on the dark, like bad spectrum. On the end of spectrum, that's like on the bad side of Straightedge, which is like
Right.
positive side is like like healthy lifestyle and healthy everything. But these guys, like some Boston bands, are like just like if you
Oh yeah,
drink,
the
they'll fuck
beatdown
you.
bands. Yeah. Yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
liked. It's so funny. So when did you go straight edge?
Well, like I said earlier, I've pretty much been sober
Oh,
my whole life,
that's true. You said
and
that.
but I became straight edge about maybe 8 years ago.
Like you claimed, I
I
am.
claimed I claimed I'm straight edge. I always had an aversion to drug and alcohol use, and it just never made any sense for me personally.
That makes sense.
But then the way I discovered straight edge was I was online one day, and I was
Mm-hmm.
looking to try and find more things out about sobriety,
Right.
and I came across something called straight edge, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?"
Right.
And then I discovered there was this whole subculture and genre of music dedicated to people that thought like me.
I discovered when I was like 16, but I couldn't find cool bands that I could get into. Like they showed me like Gorilla Biscuits and
Mm.
some bands, but nothing like hard. So I was into like people around me were drinking. It was like bad behavior. I didn't like how people are like smoking and drinking. So if I encountered actual like good band back then, I would have been all about it. But
Yeah.
what what bands did you like discover first?
The first band I discovered, Gorilla Biscuits would be one of them for
Oh
sure.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, I discovered Earth Crisis pretty early on, I would
Okay.
say. Um, Archangel, I don't know if you're familiar with that band.
Not really.
That's a vegan straight edge band from France.
Interesting.
Yeah, which was really sick. Um, who else? I mean, Minor Threat, of course.
Minus Red, yeah, Minus Red.
Yeah, when I found out like what it was about, I was like, oh, this punk music is kind of cool. But it's funny, like what you were just saying about the hard stuff. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the positive stuff, like the
Uh-huh.
PMA kind of youth of today stuff, never really appealed to me.
Oh
I
really?
was always more of a like a harder sort of sound.
Mm.
And I think part of the reason is because I came from a metal background. Before I
Oh yeah.
was into hardcore and punk, I was into and still am to some degree into like heavy bands like Mastodon,
Ah, okay.
um, you know,
What are
yeah,
the other bands that metal bands that you?
uh, other metal bands like Mastodon, Gojira,
Uh huh.
who else? Uh, Stuff like Metallica, Slayer, that sort of stuff.
So yeah, I see.
And I was like, yeah, metal's sick. And when I first found the straight edge hardcore stuff, I was like, some of this is a bit light for me, is like a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah, a
soft.
bit.
And it wasn't until I found harder stuff like Archangel or
Mm.
Earth Crisis that I was like, yeah, this is fucking sick.
Totally like metal riffs, harder riffs.
Yeah, harder riffs. Yeah,
You like
exactly.
Slapshot?
I do like Slapshot, but I don't know a lot about them. I've
Okay,
listened
okay.
to them before, but I wouldn't say I'm a like a big fan by any means or
Hmm.
anything like that.
I see, I see.
But I love Boston, you know, Boston hardcore.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like it's a bit more of a positive band, but like Have Heart, I think is a great band.
Oh yeah, I've known.
Um, you know, especially for the straight edge movement, I think that got a lot of people in straight edge in
Mm.
Boston and stuff like that, and I think that's really cool.
This is the last right negative effects.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
Negative effect. The singer from the band Slapshot. His name is Choke, and he was a singer of Negative Effects and Last Rites. Are you familiar with those bands?
I'm familiar with them, but I don't know a lot about them to be honest
Okay.
with you.
There's a
Yeah,
funny story. I can't quote, but there's a funny story between Ian MacKaye and Boston Crew. So obviously Ian MacKaye, you're already laughing. So
yeah,
Ian MacKaye started the Straightedge. I mean, basically, and
yeah.
well, he made it so everybody knows about it, and it was always about positivity and nothing about violence. But then Boston Crew started like doing all this stuff that like. Well, it's a gossip. If I'm not sure if it actually happened, I heard some interviews about it, but people started saying like Boston Crew is just going around town, like going to shows and like punching everybody who has a beer in his hand or something.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. That's
Oh
for
yeah.
sure true. Yeah, it's,
Okay.
I don't know. Have you ever seen the what's called the Boston Beatdown?
A movie?
Yeah, yeah.
I think I started watching it. I didn't finish. I see.
Yeah, it's like a kind of like a documentary, and it's about
Sick.
Boston kids in the hardcore scene, especially straight edge, going around and fucking people up. Um,
That's
so
funny, but yeah, I get it. So
yeah,
Ian
there's.
MacKaye. So sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, no.
Ian MacKaye sent I think Al from SSD a letter or somebody from SSD a letter and saying like this is not what is supposed to be, like stop doing that or something like that.
Hmm.
And so the singer from the Slapshot, Choke, he was like, oh fuck that. And he wrote the most militant song ever, which is actually my favorite straight edge song, called My Mix Right. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
You can take your ideas and throw them out the door because we don't give a shit who the fuck it's for. We like our ideas and put them in your head, and if you don't like it, you're gonna wind up dead. And the chorus is, "Be mean, let's beat, let's trash, let's fight. My mix right." That's the meanest, just funniest shit.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
That's the story apparently.
I would believe it. I mean, with everything that was happening in the Boston hardcore scene, especially in the '90s, like was perceived a pretty violent time in
Mm,
hardcore.
yeah.
And it's funny. I'm kind of nostalgic for that because there's something like. Don't get me wrong. There's obviously problems. There's toxicity of it,
Right.
but there's something really cool about just how fucking violent and
Of
how over the
course.
top it was. You know what I mean?
Over the
Like,
top it is, of course.
yeah, over the
Punk's
top.
always been about that. I mean, hardcore
Yeah.
came from punk, and punk always been like, just doing anything offensive to offend people.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's counterculture.
Yeah. Um, to me, punk has been a little bit too soft, but I mean, there's a lot of bands, a lot of different bands to generalize like that. So I can't say, but um, yeah, I like that kind of side, that side of dangerous side of punk, like mean side.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think punk nowadays is has changed. There's no bands that are quite like they
Mm,
were. I mean, the first band that comes to mind that is kind of aggressive is
yeah.
Section Hate.
Section hate. I was
Yeah,
gonna
that
talk about that. I was gonna mention Section Hate as my current favorite band later on.
yeah, they're an awesome band.
Great. They oh man, there's so much to say about that band. But anyway, please go on.
Yeah, like that when I hear that band, I'm like, okay, this reminds me of that '90s stuff.
Mm.
This reminds me of the true essence of punk and hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure you saw that show they performed in
Oh yeah,
LA with Dead City Punks, which
crazy.
is also another great band.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was just madness. That was like people, think cars were on fire, people were running around in circle pits, people had like flamethrowers or whatever, and
Pop
fucking
shooting at them.
fireworks. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny. Do you remember
And I'm like,
people? Sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead.
Do you remember people like freaking out about the New York like Tompkins Square show that
I
Joe
do.
Joseph organized?
Yes, and
What was
with
your reaction?
Madball.
Madball, yeah.
My reaction initially, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was initially kind of like, this is a bit stupid.
Oh yeah.
But the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, no, like it isn't stupid. There's something about it that,
Mm,
um, the fact is with the coronavirus situation,
right.
the world has to return to a normalized state.
Mm,
So
at some
we
point.
can't just we can't just always, you know, be afraid or hide from it. We have to get back to normal. So, and
Mm,
that's very much how I saw that show was like,
okay, that makes sense.
we need to get back to normal, and what better way to do it with bands like Madball or,
Mhm. Yeah,
et
absolutely.
cetera, et cetera. Like that's the essence of punk, right?
Hmm. Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, "This is awesome, and this is gonna piss a lot of people off." So
It did
I was
piss a lot of people off.
I was happy a lot of people were angry, and I was like, "Damn, LA thing happened," and people like, "This is amazing." So the same people who were pissed out about it, I guess they changed mind like you did.
Yeah.
But that was like, yeah, I wish I was there.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean,
Mm.
that looks like it was. Both of those shows look pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Um, do you? I think I've seen a picture of you with Mike from Section 8 before.
Nah, no, wasn't
Really?
me. No, God, I wish.
Same.
That'd be sick.
Really? You just follow him, I guess. Then.
Yeah, I just follow him. Yeah.
Uh, I swear to God, I saw something, but yeah, I guess not. Hmm. So okay, we're gonna talk about Section 8 later. But
Yeah.
okay, I wanted to ask you: do you consider coffee straight edge?
I do consider coffee straight edge.
Okay.
Or what I mean is like I don't consider it to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Is more what I mean.
Mm,
Um,
makes sense.
I think because I know there's some people, especially in the more militant section, like, oh, you shouldn't drink coffee because it's
Really?
it's an addiction or it's bad for you. But um, the whole idea with straight edge, I think, if you look at initially where it was from, was more about drugs and alcohol. And the reality is you can drink a cup of coffee and be totally fine, but you can drink 6 bottles of beer and not be fine.
Absolutely.
Uh, you
You're
know
not
what I
gonna
mean? Like,
you're not gonna
yeah,
drink coffee and go, wreck your friend or whatever.
yeah, exactly. You're not
Let's
gonna
see.
you're not gonna black out from drinking a cup of coffee. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Uh, yeah, it's.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
I
I mean,
think there's nothing wrong with coffee.
yeah, that makes sense. I just wondered if there are some people who would be like no coffee either. There's got to be, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's definitely, especially like, I don't know if you're familiar with Hardline.
No.
So Hardline was during the '90s. There was a few bands. One of them actually is Vegan Reich. If you're familiar with that band,
Yes. Yes.
they were a hardline straight edge band. So hardline meant they were vegan straight edge, but they also
Oh, I didn't know that.
they didn't partake in caffeine. They didn't
Okay.
believe in sex. They unfortunately were very homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're very like
Really?
fundamental, and
Mm.
hardline was very much against coffee and caffeine.
That's another thing. What song was it? Out of Step. Uh, which song was the straight edge? Don't don't drink, don't. I forgot.
Yeah, don't drink, don't smoke, don't fuck, sort of thing.
Originally, yeah. So straight edge originally was like, don't drink, don't smoke, don't fuck. It was like
Yeah,
and people conveniently ignore the fuck part, and it's like I think it's more about don't have unprotected sex or something that toxic
Mhm.
sex, irresponsible sex or whatever, something like that. What's up with the sex part with Straightedge?
I think, like you said, a lot of people tend to ignore that particular line. I think really Ian MacKaye, what he was really trying to talk about, and
Mm.
he's kind of confirmed it in later interviews.
Oh, really?
He wasn't necessarily saying like don't do this,
Right.
but like you were saying, like be mindful about the
Right.
choices you make.
I figured.
So don't, like them going hand in hand with drug and alcohol use, just that kind of
Mm.
meaningless sex and that over the top, again, over the top as a word, uh, behavior that people kind of associate with punk and hardcore, at
Mm.
least early on, prior to bands like Minor Threat.
Mm.
I think when people thought of, punk music, they were like, oh yeah, like, Sex Pistols or whatever, like
Yeah,
drugs and fucking
drugs,
alcohol,
death,
sex, and that kind of shit.
violence, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. So what's your favorite Straightedge song?
My favorite Straightedge song is probably Firestorm by Earth Crisis.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's
I
it's just the opening lyrics, that dun 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 dun, and then just like street by street, block by block, taking it all back. It's just those would be my favorite Straightedge lyrics. It's just
mm,
like boom,
yeah, in your face. That's great. Okay. What did I ask you to? Oh, okay. Three. Well, it doesn't matter if it's Straightedge or whatever. By the way, I'm not Straightedge. If not
Yeah.
everybody. Mhm.
Oh,
I
go.
drank myself to sleep last night, which was a horrible choice, and I'm not gonna do that again. But anyway, just to clarify. And what are your favorite frontmen?
So
Any?
with
Mhm.
any sort of genre,
I would say like punk and hardcore is
punk and
pretty.
hardcore. So
Mhm.
I've got three here. They're in no order. Uh,
No, no.
because it's too hard to decide. But I would say Ian MacKaye for sure.
Oh yeah.
I think he's just a role model for punk kids at DC.
Mm.
And I mean, obviously, an inventor of straight edge ideology.
Mm.
I think Ian MacKaye is a really important figure. And obviously, like Minor Threat, Fugazi, like great bands.
Mhm.
Um,
I
so
like
he would
the
be one of my choices.
I like Ian MacKaye, but I wasn't that into his voice or performance as like a stage figure. I couldn't really get into Manfred.
Mm.
Musically, I like the riffs. But yeah, he seems like a great guy. I've watched the interviews and he seems very, very intelligent and all that.
Yeah,
Definitely
he
a
seems
role
a smart
model.
guy, right? Yeah.
Other two?
Other two, so secondary would be HR, Human Rights from the Bad Brains.
Holy shit. What? Human what?
Like human rights. So like HR stands for human rights.
I didn't know that. HR.
Yeah, HR from the Bad
Like,
Brains.
mm-hmm.
I think he's a pretty unique to the time period, and perhaps is still. And arguably, people argue that Bad Brains is the creator of hardcore music
Mm-hmm.
in America. And it's also cool that like it's a black guy talking about Rastafarianism,
Mm.
vegetarianism, positive mental attitude, and important topics like racism.
Mm.
So I think yeah, HR from Bad Brains is a really cool front man, and I think he's quite legendary.
His like stage presence is like just like absolutely outstanding. Just
Yeah, he's
flipping
he's crazy.
backwards and shit. He came to Toronto while I was there, I think, and I had to choose to see Flag, not Black Flag, Flag or Bad Brains because I was broke. So I chose fuck yeah, I guess I'm gonna go see Flag, but it was good because apparently HR just stood there and whispered or something, so people complaining about it.
Complained about it. Yeah, HR. I mean, HR has schizophrenia.
He does? I had no
He
idea.
does. Yeah, he has schizophrenia, and
Oh shit.
he's not with all due respect, he's not all there
Mm.
anymore. I think he really struggles. So
Mm,
certainly the heyday of Bad Brains is
see,
banned in DC and is the 80s and early
absolutely.
90s for sure.
I mean,
Uh,
even though I was used to like newer music type of music, like Bad Brains were very refreshing. Like it was new to me. Anyway,
yeah, yeah, it's very revolutionary, I think, for the time, especially.
what are the other?
My third choice would be Ray Capo
Oh, the
of
guy
Youth
from
of Today and Shelter.
Shelter. Mm,
Um, I think another example, like another charismatic role model for youth.
mm,
And he Youth of Today really helped further bring straight edge to the punk scene,
mm,
and he also really helped bring vegetarianism
mm.
a lot more to that scene as well. So I think he's a really important figure, prior to bands like Earth Crisis and uh, other bands at that time. And he's a Ray Cappo is a very charismatic kind of role model.
I.
He's
Mhm.
he seems like a really intelligent guy, and I mean he's a yoga teacher now and still plays shows, and I just think he's a really cool dude.
Was he a monk as well?
He was a monk as well, yeah. He was a
Hare
monk
Krishna.
for Hare Krishna monk for 8 years.
Mm.
And that was actually when he was in shelter.
Oh. I so last year I was watching Joe Rogan's a lot, and I just like recognized him. Like, why is this hardcore guy on this podcast? I mean, he had like
Yeah.
Henry Rollins and John Joseph as well. But I was surprised that he was on it. I guess something to do with MMA or something like that.
Yeah, I was also surprised actually that he was on it.
Mm, that's he knows a lot of people. Cool. Is he the singer of Youth of Today? Like, no,
He he is, yeah, no
oh,
more.
that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
That video is hilarious, by the way.
It is pretty hilarious. Yeah. It's very dated.
Elise and I would just like anything, like everyday life, whatever happens, like something happened that we didn't like, we would be like, no, Mom. It's like a meme for us. We send each other
That's
that.
funny.
My favorite
That's,
frontman, one of them would be Frank Carter from
oh
Gallo.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm a
absolutely.
huge Frank Carter fan, yeah.
I was well, especially I don't know his like current stuff. I don't really know, but like I followed Gallows all the way because what's that? Orchestra of Wolves
Orchestra
came
of
out,
Wolves, yeah.
came out when I was in middle school. I bought the album, and then Great Britain
Oh,
that fucked
beautiful.
me up. That fucked me up, and it was it was funny because all the music I used to listen to, like Slipknot, Avenged Sevenfold, and shit like that, they all had like super like muscular buff guys with a lot of tattoos, and Franca looked like me. He was just so skinny, and I was like always like sensitive about my body. But I saw him in his performance, I was like, fuck, I can do this. So he was definitely like a role model to me. This guy is skinny as fuck like me, and he's just like brutal and cool.
And
And
he puts on a good show. I mean, his I saw Frank
absolutely,
Carter live.
absolutely.
Actually, I saw him live in Toronto in 20, I
Boy.
think 17. This was his solo band, obviously not Gallows, but dude,
Rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes, but his performance was like this guy is top of his game.
My God, did you follow him when he was still in Gallows?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I followed him his whole career so
Did you
far.
like Pure Love?
Did I like
Pure
Pure
Love.
Love?
Mhm.
Yeah, I understood why people didn't like Pure Love, but I thought it
Me
was
too.
kind of a cool thing.
At the time, I didn't like
Um,
it because I was like, "Oh, this is not Frank Carter." But people change, and but he came back to the punk stuff anyway.
exactly, yeah.
Mm.
What would be your other favorite frontman?
Other favorite one. I mentioned Choke from Slapshot because
Slapshot.
he's just uh Jack Kelly, aka Choke from Slapshot. He's a comedian. He likes making fun of people and trigger a lot of people. Just to me, Slapshot is like Bill Burr of hardcore, just making fun of everybody. Like, just read the lyrics. It's just like first time I found the band, I was like, "What is this band? Like, fuck New York, kill your parents, crossover sucks, rap sucks." It's just absolutely like hilarious. And he has a mighty presence too. So if you didn't know, Frank Carter does this too, but he hits his head with this broken hockey stick, and he
Yeah.
bleeds the stick. That's me. I used to do that when I was in a band. I would like hit my head with a microphone like Frank Carter,
Oh
and
yeah.
people are like, "Ouch!" But the explosion of energy just attracted me.
No, the adrenaline for sure.
The third one, I probably have to say Mike Ness from Social Distortion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's a good choice.
Do you like Social Distortion?
I like Social Distortion. Yeah.
Mhm. I was
Yeah,
big
it's
into it when I was in high school, so
nice.
I got well, three front man, but I have another one that I really like. His name is I don't know his actual name. Maybe Glenn, Uncle Anus. He's from a Toronto band called Dirty Bird. Do you know them?
I don't know that band, no.
Mm. He passed away after I came back to Japan and discovered the band because I didn't know this band when I was in Toronto, which sucks because I can't see them anymore. But they are outstanding. And
Mm.
they're like super like the drunkest Canadian hardcore band. They call themselves the drunkest hardcore band or whatever. And they are that. And his presence is super uh, great. And he's the sweetest guy ever. Even though I never met him, I listened to a lot of interviews and he was legendary in the scene. But he always hung out with anybody. Like all the kids who came to the show, he would like hang out with anybody and be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
So he was loved, and yeah, I have to shout out to Dirty Bird Toronto. They're still active with the new singer, or maybe old
Oh,
singer, but
oh, cool. I'll have to check them out. I'm
mm,
curious to hear more about them.
they don't sound the same, obviously. But I mean, when he was in it, I was like, "This is great."
This is great. Cool.
Punk hardcore albums that you like?
Do you want like a top three?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I've got three. They're probably not going to be that surprising,
Mm.
considering my interest in things. But
Mhm.
I would say Gamora Season End by Earth Crisis.
Okay.
I think that's a somewhat overlooked disc in the discography. Um, and I just think it's a tough vegan straight edge band. I think as far as a record goes, they really refined their sound on that record.
I am not familiar with that record. Like, how
Oh
is it?
no, how is it?
Yeah, how is it different from other ones? That.
A lot of the previous Earth Crisis records were the production wasn't that great. In
Mm.
all honesty, I mean it was of the time, but I feel like when Gamora Season End came out, they really refined the sound and really kind of came into what they were trying to accomplish. So
Okay,
that's one of my favorite records.
makes sense.
Um, I was mentioning Shelter earlier, so it's no surprise that Shelter is one of my favorite as well.
Hmm.
Mantra by Shelter.
Mm.
I think that's a really great record. I think for those unaware, Shelter is a band that was created after the dissolution of Youth of Today. So it
Oh,
has Ray Cappo and John Porcel, and it's a Krishnacore
Krishna
rock music. Krishnacore, yeah.
rock.
Um, and I think what's really cool about that particular record is that even if you don't have an interest in God or Krishna or anything else, I think you can still identify with the lyrics.
Oh yeah,
I think there's a sense of wisdom to the music and the lyrics itself. And I
mm,
think that's what makes it really cool.
I see.
Um, and I guess my number one choice for sure, like undoubtedly, would be my favorite uh, hardcore record of all time.
Ooh,
So much so that I actually got part of it tattooed on my face.
what is it?
It's Threefold Misery by the band 108.
I don't know them.
So 108 is a Krishna core band.
Oh,
Um, they're do you know No Spiritual Surrender?
no.
No, okay.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm not so
so
familiar
yeah,
with the genre.
was created by these two Hare Krishnas that created this band called 108,
Mm-hmm.
and the record Threefold Misery talks about everything from the faith to ego to soul, sobriety, vegetarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything you can kind of think about is in this album, and I just think conceptually, lyrically, and musically, it's immaculate in every way. So that would be my favorite hardcore record of
I gotta
all
check
time.
it
I would
out.
say anyone that wants to know, yeah, Threefold Misery by 108. Uh, it's
Mhm.
kind of it has similar messages to the Mantra album by Shelter, but it's a much heavier sound. Um, it'd be more like Earth Crisis in terms of its sound.
I see.
Yeah. So
Cool.
it's a really those are my favorite records.
So when did you get those records? When you just started?
Like when did I start getting into those records?
Yeah, when you started getting into Straightedge, did you get these records or?
Yeah. So I mean, both obviously Earth Crisis. I got into that particular record through Straight Edge.
Hmm.
It took a lot longer with Mantra and Threefold Misery to kind of get into those.
Right.
I knew that they were were vegetarian, and I knew that they were straight edge,
Hmm.
but I didn't really know anything about
Okay.
Hare Krishna or anything like that. So
Right.
that took a little while for me to get into those kind of records. But once they stuck, they have just remained my favorite records for
Cool.
years now.
How did you get into Hare Krishna?
I got in through the punk scene.
Obviously.
Um, yeah, so those records in particular really
Hmm.
uh, got me into it. And theology as a whole, I think like I'd always had an interest in it,
Hmm.
but I heard these records and I was like, wow, like these guys are talking about this
Hmm.
while performing hard, heavy music.
Hmm.
And it's the same
That's
kind of like
yeah.
concept that we saw in the vegan straight edge scene, whereas like they were
Um,
getting a message and making it very aggressive.
the gap though, like the gap of the compassion and all these like the gap between the messages, like being very intelligent and compassionate and all kinds of all this kind of stuff, and just sounding and looking so mean and hard. There's something about that makes you like just makes those bands like look so cool to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially
Just
especially when you go to like punk shows, like you see a lot of people who, I mean, I don't think they're scary, but like people who is not familiar with that kind of music would think scary. Or obviously you have all the face tattoos and all that. Like people look at you and think you scary or whatever. That these are the easiest to talk to, like the people who are easiest to talk to and just nicest and going through some
oh,
hard
for
shit.
sure. For
So
sure. I think yeah.
that part of like punk and all these like outside of music scene really attracted me, and they are still strong. They're not soft, nice but
Oh,
not
for
soft.
sure.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
cool.
I think what you were just saying about the tattoo thing is a great example. People do see people who are very heavily tattooed and think to themselves like, "Oh, like this person's scary or this person's going to be mean." But 9 times out of 10 they turn out to be the nicest, softest people.
Yeah, most
Uh
likely. Yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean?
it's usually the case. It's harder to find somebody. Well, it's not actually not hard. I don't know, but it's cool. That attracted me and drawn me into punk hardcore in general. My favorite album, which I mentioned, is Great Britain.
Oh
The
yeah, Great
drums,
Britain is
yeah, the intro was like. So I remember like buying that album. I also bought the Casualties album that came out around the same time, and at the same time I bought those two, and remember like putting the Casualties album in my CD player, and it was, oh, this is pretty cool. And then put the Great Britain, and I was like, you remember the intro?
oh yeah.
River
Yeah. Yeah,
Riverbank.
dun 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 dun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just like
That
it's very soft, especially you look at a song like Misery. It has that very like symphonic, strings and whatnot, and then it just comes in
yeah.
crashing.
Yes. There's something about that. It was just like, I don't know. To me, it was like so British. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, it's very English for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't wrong. And another one is I have to choose one from Social Distortion's album. I guess uh, Heaven and Hell album. Do you know that one? Purple
That's a
one.
good one.
And another one is by the band I just mentioned, Dirty Bird. Dirty Bird Seeks. This album is really just it's super dirty, mean, heavy sounding punk album. This is definitely a punk album, not metal. But it's just this band is also funny, and I don't know. You just gotta listen to it to understand and see the
Yeah,
show to
it's
understand.
it's got a humor to it, right?
Humor to it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the albums I liked, and maybe we should talk about current favorite bands because it has Section Hate in it. I My current favorite band is Section Hate.
hmm
What is yours? I guess three. You can give
Uh,
me three.
let's see the three. So I would say Inclination,
Mm-hmm.
which is a straight edge band.
Okay.
I would say Section Hate for sure.
Section Hate. There you go.
Section Hate, yeah, is a great band. And there's a band from New York called Mind Force.
Okay.
Mind Force is kind of like it's a bit of a thrashy kind of hardcore band. It would be like if you got, um, it'd be kind of like Cro-Mags, I suppose, for lack of
Mm.
better kind of description. But yeah, modern sounding and really great. But I definitely agree with you on Section Hate. I think Section Hate is a really great band.
Did you follow Nomads?
I didn't know.
Oh, Nomads is the band. The dude, his name is Mike, I think, from Section Hate. Was previously in. It was more like a punk. I can hear like some D beat influence to it, but
Oh,
Section
okay.
Hate. He from Section Hate because he wanted to do something else and like Matt Ball and Call It's Life type like harder like hardcore stuff and didn't
Yeah.
fit that band. So he just started Section Hate with I guess a lot of same members from the mentioned previously mentioned band
Oh, okay.
Nomads. But yeah, I mean I don't know. They the lyrics and like the one thing is I can absolutely dance to that song. Like those songs are made to dance.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they have moshability.
Watch a movie. What song do you like?
What song do I like
Do you remember?
from from Section Hate?
Yeah.
You know that most recent one they put out, Nightmare. One of the
Nightmare.
most recent ones.
Yeah. That's
So that's
pretty
from
good.
their upcoming LP. I think that's a really cool song.
I ordered
As well
it.
as that. Oh, did you?
It's
Yeah.
Japanese edition too. This is Japanese edition.
Oh, that's sick.
Mm.
And they did that song. I think it's called with what's his name?
Tim
Tim Timebomb from Rancid.
Rancid, yeah.
That's a cool song too. I can't remember
Mm.
the name of it. Street
Uh,
Sweeper, I think maybe
yeah, something like that.
something like that. That's a cool tune.
I
And
was
what about
surprised
you?
they friends together.
Yeah, right.
I like the song, the first song from the first EP or whatever, the red one,
With the
AD,
dog on the front, right?
Dog on the
80.
Front.
Yeah.
That like I mean I didn't really like Foot. I couldn't get into it, but I saw live and it's like a rap, but
Mm.
like that's something that like your head moves like when you listen to hip hop. Like your head moves like that when you listen to that song, but it's
Yes.
flows.
It flows. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Really.
Ramones, they
Right.
don't have any second between the songs. It's just bam, 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 and maybe four or five
Yeah.
songs. Then they stop, talk a bit, and then go again. Mm.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's just like this constant
Music.
power.
Mm-hmm. I don't really like. I love doing that. I was in a band and I used to do that. Like just like song, 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 song. It flows like one song. I
Mhm.
like that when bands do that. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool. It's almost conceptual to like string the songs together in a way that they're
Yeah,
it's almost like one long song.
absolutely. Um. So yeah, I mean, oh yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you consider yourself a skinhead?
I don't.
Mm.
I definitely have a real big interest in skinhead culture,
Mm.
and I always have. I think something, coming up in the music scene and seeing even just how striking they were
Mm-hmm.
visually made me really interested in skinhead culture.
Mm-hmm. How common is it
Uh,
to see skinheads in, let's say, Toronto?
uh, I mean, not as common as it probably was.
Oh,
I've seen a few for sure,
mm,
and I saw last time I saw a skinhead was a black skinhead,
mm.
um, who was wearing like a jacket with patches and had like a Harrington shirt on, and I was like, oh sweet, that's a
Sweet.
skinhead.
That's proper.
Um, but it's not a proper skinhead exactly. I guess we should probably explain for those that are kind of unaware, like
I was like,
skinhead
fuck it, but you
culture.
can do it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I might as well do it. Skinhead culture was very much co-opted by neo Nazis and was originally brought to the UK by Jamaican immigrants in the 60s and 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was co-opted by a bunch of nationalist assholes that
Mm.
wanted to wanted to make it their own. So when we talk about skinheads, we're talking about authentic, loving, ska loving, reggae loving, um, you know, true skinheads, not these neo-Nazi assholes.
Skinhead culture used to be all about fashion and music. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing. It had nothing to do with politics, or I would say, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and,
absolutely.
and people like National Front or something from UK just kind of recruited skinheads. Then like I wasn't there. I was living in that time, but that's how I interpreted how skinhead was taken over by that kind of political movement.
Yes.
And it used to be about really just about fashion and music and unity. Like literally in 80s, skinhead revival or whatever people call happen called two tone,
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
bands like the specials and
English beat.
selectors, yeah. And literally like black and white, like two tones, black and white together. It was like about like working class culture and like you said, like Jamaican immigrants and working class, I guess
Mm-hmm.
English kids. They kind of got together, just integrated and started this ska, rocksteady, reggae based music scene, and developed into the whole thing. Now in 2021, there's so many different branches of skinhead culture that's really just cool and fascinating.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
It spread it into black metal too, and it's just so like just whole thing is fascinating to me.
It is very fascinating. I think, there's something really cool about the idea of the working class and shaving your head and
Mhm.
dressing up to do your best to go and dance to dance to ska. Like that's cool.
Do you fuck with ska and reggae too?
I do. I love
Nice.
reggae. I love ska. I especially love two tone.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, two tone.
specials
Okay.
specials are one of my favorite bands.
Mhm.
The Beat, I really like The Beat. I think they're an awesome band. That's actually some of the before I was into hardcore, into punk and all that, and metal and all that sort of stuff. Growing up, like many other kids, I was listening to my parents' music,
Oh yeah.
and my dad had the Specials. He
No
had
way.
The Beat, and that's what actually got me into that stuff when I was probably 12 or 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's cool. Um, yeah, I actually the first time I met a skinhead was actually in Toronto. They're having a show. There was this skinhead band called Bourbon DK. Um, and they're talking outside the venue, and I talked to them like, "Hey," and like, you know what skinheads like, just like that. He started like, you know what skinheads are. I was Yes. And he's like, no, it's like it's people who look like us, man. And he's like, okay, cool. I mean, I knew, but and they're really nice. And it's funny because he was like talking about how this dude with white power tattoo came into his show, and he was like, his he beat him up and stuff like that. So I already knew what that kind of uh things are happening, that people think skinhead, oh, neo-Nazis and all that, because you watch
Yeah,
stream media and that's all you see.
that's all you see. Exactly.
uh my favorite band, skinhead band, is, this is not famous band. These guys are from Britain. I'm not sure if they're from England. I don't want to assume they're from Britain. They're called the Jeffrey Uppercut. Have you heard of that? Heard of them?
I I haven't actually. No.
They are like the meanest, like the dirtiest, super pissed, just drunk and horrendous, scary sounding, the most the roughest sounding skinhead band ever. And it's not like oi. It's more like mixture of oi and metal and hardcore. It's just heavy and fast too. Super
Oh,
pissed.
okay.
And I loved it, and I contacted them. I bought a CD, but they didn't reply for like a week. So I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I contacted them again, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We disbanded like a month ago or something, and I don't have CD anymore. I already paid." So they're like, "Well, I'm gonna make you a special CD that
Oh,
has
that's
all the
cool.
song, yeah, all the songs that we have." And they have like 3 EPs or whatever, and some unreleased tunes. So they made that, and he actually drew like the custom. It's a
Album
shitty
cover?
drawing, but yeah, he made a album cover, and he sent it to me with T-shirt and a patch. All that.
That's amazing.
That's my favorite band from that point. Favorite skinhead band. And I also like the Stars and Stripes from America, which is also done by the singer of Slapshot Choke. That
Oh, I
band
didn't know that.
hilarious too. Mm.
Cool.
But anyway, what is your go-to skinhead bands?
I like The Last Resort quite a bit.
Last Result.
The Last Resort is sick. I like The Oppressed quite a bit.
Your Press. Okay.
Yeah, I like The Oppressed quite a bit just because they have a pretty anti-fascist
Mm.
perspective to them. I think
Okay.
that's really cool. Those would
Mm.
be my favorite, the two that come to mind.
Have you seen the
Um,
Last Result?
no, I've never like. Have I seen them live?
Yeah.
No, I
Ah,
wish.
I did in Osaka. Wait, Nagoya. I didn't. No, no, no. I
Oh
did in
yeah.
Osaka. They toured through
Oh,
Japan.
that's cool.
I
How was that
actually,
show?
it was great, and I actually met Roy outside the venue. I always try to talk to the band, and I was like fortunate enough to see him too, and I took a picture with him. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
The guy looks scary as fuck. He might have the scariest look in music in general, like ever. Like, don't fuck with that guy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's not one to fuck with.
Yeah, exactly. But he's the sweetest. Which album did you like?
From Last Resort?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have to think about that.
I love the,
Um,
what's that called? I actually like the new one. This is my England, I guess.
oh yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. That one's actually really good. I
very
think
very
what's cool about a lot of, I find it with skinhead bands too, is the music stays pretty consistent throughout the lifetime
true.
of the band.
True.
So you still get really great music even later in the career.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Um, and skinhead culture is really funny because funny in the way that a lot of American skinheads are associated with straightedge, and they're like no
Yes.
drink, no smoke type shit. And then also other skinheads are known as heavy drinkers, just smoke, drink, and dance to reggae and all that. That kind of all like everything from that spectrum like mushed together, and we call them skinheads. And to me, it's
Yes.
like super like diverse and interesting. I don't know. I just love it.
Yeah, it is a very diverse group of people, and
Mm.
a reminder to people, when they do see what they believe to be a skinhead,
Yeah.
you really gotta not use judgment, and just remember that there's a whole different types
Hmm.
of them and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, did you prepare two truths and a lie?
I did actually. Um,
Well, I guess
so let me.
sure.
I had to think about this here. Um,
Originally thought we might not have enough things to talk about, which happened to be not true at all. But I mean,
no, we
since you
we have so
prepared
much to
it,
talk about.
I want to hear what you prepared. Before
Okay,
that, can I
so
go to the bathroom?
of course, go
I'll
for
be
it.
back in a second.
Okay, do you want me to talk? So Subasa's left, and it's just me, of course. I'm just here. This is really exciting. I'm glad to be able to do this podcast with him, and talk about some stuff that is important to me. There's definitely It's definitely weird being put on the spot. I've never been on a podcast before, so you have to excuse me if I have any kind of vocal blunders. But yeah, it's this is a really cool experience, and I'm really glad to be involved in it and do this with Subasa. Uh,
Okay, I'm
Hopefully, I can
back.
come back. Welcome.
Did you talk while I was gone?
I did do some talking. Yeah,
Good. Yeah, I'm not gonna cut it then.
yeah. I was like, I'll talk for a bit. I mean, you can see what you think, and if you want to cut it, you want to cut it. It's fine.
Elise did that in the first episode, if you remember. I was like, "I'm
Yes,
going to the
I
bathroom and
do.
just talk."
Just talk. That's all you can
Mhm.
do.
Sure. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so two truths and a lie, right?
Mhm,
Or
mhm.
okay. Um, so I had a stroke at age 21.
Okay.
I was raised by Mormons,
Huh.
and I have a son that lives in Taiwan.
Mm.
So
Well,
I think you probably know one of them.
yeah, I know your son lives in Taiwan, and
Yes.
12. Sounds like 2 might be. Well, I'll believe if you say everything happened, but 2 might be a lie.
Two might be a lie.
Yeah, 2. I think I would say 2 is the lie.
So I was raised by Mormons?
You want.
Yeah, I was not. Yes.
Okay. That's a good
That's
one.
correct. But it's also believable just because of my life that people
Absolutely.
would think like maybe that's the truth, you know?
What happened in the first one?
With the stroke.
Yeah.
So I contracted viral meningitis.
What was
For
that?
those unfamiliar with meningitis, meningitis is a bacteria that builds up in your spine,
Mm.
and we generally what it does is causes inflammation in your spine and in your brain.
Holy shit.
So it's a very dangerous thing. There's a lot of people that have meningitis that die from meningitis. The fatality rate is quite high.
Let's see.
Um, and if it doesn't kill you, it can make you blind.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a pretty serious disease. Now I caught viral meningitis in 2010, late 2010,
Mhm.
or maybe actually no, in 2011, early to 2011. And the way it kind of happened was I was living in Vancouver at the time,
Mm.
and I was going on vacation. And the first night of my vacation, I had a stroke. Uh, I didn't know I had a stroke because who has a stroke at age 21? That's not a common thing to have.
Oh, 21. Okay.
21, yeah. But I mean, for transparency's sake, I had a stroke directly after I had sex.
Mm.
So I had just finished having sex, and then I felt my arm go numb, and
Holy
I was
shit.
like, "Ow! Like, what's going on with my arm?" And I felt the side of my body becoming quite numb. And
Dang.
so I ran to the bathroom to look in the mirror, and my face was drooping. Part of my face was down,
Oh shit.
and then I started throwing up,
Mm.
and I started throwing up a lot, like consistently throwing up for like an hour. Um, Now that in medical terms is called a transient ischemic attack, which is actually considered a mini stroke.
Oh.
Um, I had another mini stroke about 2 days later,
Mm-hmm.
and I still didn't think anything was wrong. I was like, "Oh, I'm probably just sick. I probably had the flu."
Okay.
But then I ended up having an ischemic attack, which is like a full stroke. That's when your whole face, you lose paralyzation for half your body. You can't speak, you can't walk very well. Um, it's very much like you see in movies. Um, at the time, I lived, thankfully, diagonal to a hospital when I lived in Vancouver. So I started having this stroke, and I was like, "Shit! Like, what the fuck's going on?" I was in panic. So I actually dragged my body, like dragged my leg across the street to the hospital.
Mm.
I went into the hospital and started talking to the person at the emergency desk. But
Mm.
when you're having a stroke, one of the symptoms is you can't speak
Okay.
because your language makes no sense. So you
Yeah.
know what you're trying to say, but it doesn't come out properly. So I'm just standing there trying to talk to this person, and the person has no idea what I'm saying. Probably thinks I'm drunk as fuck.
Oh, okay.
And then I passed out,
Holy
and
shit.
I woke up like 12 hours later in a hospital bed, and they had no idea what had happened. Um, because that they had to do a lot of tests to figure it out, and after about a week of tests they found that I had viral meningitis, and
Mm.
that I had had strokes as a result of the inflammation. So the meningitis itself was quite well developed in my brain and in my spinal cord to cause the strokes.
Finally?
Yeah.
Really?
um so I almost died for sure in that
Right.
particular scenario. And um I was in the hospital for about a month, and my walking was really fucked up. My memory was really bad. I couldn't get places very well.
Okay, this was when, how many years ago again?
This was 2011,
2011. Okay. 10 years ago, right?
so 10 years ago now.
Do you
Yeah.
still suffer from any symptoms?
I do. I suffer from very poor memory. My
Mm.
memory is really bad.
Really? Mm.
Um,
What
you
do you do
know,
to help?
what do I do to help?
Yeah. You write down
Write
stuff?
write down stuff a lot.
Mm.
Routine is very important. So when I
Right.
say routine, I mean like putting your keys in the exact same spot every time.
Mm.
Um, yeah, stuff like that. Routine is really key because I mean, after I first had the strokes, I could barely remember anything 10 minutes ago.
Holy shit.
Like yeah, I couldn't remember what I was talking about. I couldn't remember what I had had for food. Um, and it took the better part of a year to really kind of get everything sorted and really start to feel a bit more normal again.
That plus you have what you open about your bipolar.
Yes,
Mm.
bipolar disorder.
I see.
um
Yeah, we can get into this now.
yeah, let's do it.
He's a host of this podcast called Bipolar Journey, which is lost forever in his locked laptop or whatever. But it was on
Yes.
Spotify and it's gone too, eh?
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's gone. But yeah, it was a podcast talking about my experience of life being bipolar and what it kind of was like. um Yeah,
Mm.
do you want me to talk about kind of the history of that and how I got into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I listened to the podcast with I actually listened to that with my ex who had who has bipolar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of my ex has bipolar. So yeah, it was very real to me, and you can like sum it up for me and people who listen to it.
Yeah. So yeah, really I in the podcast I talked about kind of my experience with bipolar disorder and how I, you know, got to be being diagnosed as bipolar. And as a
Mm.
bit of backstory, um, my bipolar disorder is generally inherited from family.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have it, it's likely your parents have it or one of your parents have it.
Mm.
And for me, my dad had bipolar disorder, has bipolar disorder. When he was diagnosed, it was called manic depressive. They
Mm.
no longer call it manic depressive, they call it bipolar disorder. But when he was diagnosed, it was called that. And actually, the way that I kind of came to diagnosis for that was I was watching a television show called Shameless. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
There's two versions, the UK version and an American version. But I was watching the American version,
Mm.
and one of the characters in the show has bipolar disorder.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't think to myself when I watched it, like, oh, that's me. I thought, oh, that's my dad. My dad.
Oh.
This seems very much like my dad. So I called my dad up and I started talking to him about, his health and kind of some of the things he'd experienced. And he told me, yeah, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Oh, so
And
you
I was
didn't
like,
know by then?
I didn't know. Yeah, I was like, wow,
Okay.
okay, like this is this is my dad. But it started kind of self-reflecting for me to think about all the things I had been experiencing over the last 10 years, particularly like, many states of depression, many states of mania, um, and had me kind of realize that like maybe there's something's going on. So I ended up going to my doctor who referred me to a psychiatrist. And, I sat down with a psychiatrist for an hour or two, and he was like, yeah, you definitely have bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which really for me came together and really uh, was like a sigh of relief in some ways
Right.
that
I
I
was gonna
had
ask
an
you that.
answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see.
as to what life was, why life was that way. It was like a sigh of relief because, like again, like I had gone through so many depressive states and so many manic states, and I never understood why I was going through these things. It never really, like I always thought to myself, like, why do I go through these cycles all the time?
Mm.
Why am I happy for 2 weeks and then I'm depressed for 3 months?
And you get super energetic and like inspired and all that, and do a lot of things, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, mania, uh, very much manifests itself in hypersexuality. And that's
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's and that's very much that's very common for a lot of bipolar people.
Yeah. Oh
When
yeah.
they become manic, they go into a hypersexual phase,
Mm.
and people think like, oh, that's fun, that sounds great, but it's not.
Mm.
It can be very destructive as far
Absolutely.
as that becoming your life. And when everything you do or everything you focus on is sex, it really, at the time it derailed my relationship.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it became a problem where, with infidelity and cheating and whatnot.
What's the infidelity?
Infidelity is like cheating, like
Mm. Okay.
like sleeping with other people against.
Mm. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So mania is a very serious thing,
Mm.
and I can't stress the importance of it. People like to think it's kind of fun, but uh, it's not.
Mm. I Yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say that like they liken mania to cocaine use. So I've never done cocaine before, so I don't know. But a lot of people who do have bipolar disorder, who do use substances, which is
Mm.
obviously not recommended, say
Yeah.
that it's very similar to a cocaine high,
Interesting.
in that you have this infinite energy and this mania and this euphoric sense of ability of how you see the world and how you act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can see how easily it could ruin your relationship with your loved ones. Um, my experience with dating someone who had bipolar hasn't been that hadn't been that hard because she was already medicated. She knew what was going
Mm,
on, and she was very good at hiding it. That kind of made me a little more fucked up, though. Feel fucked up because like I didn't know about it. That she, like every day she go through that kind of stuff, and I had no idea
yes.
until she opened up to me. So, um, but yeah. Mm.
I think what you're saying about the medication is a huge thing too, because like, you know, I only started getting on medication. I was only started
Mm,
medication about 2 years ago now.
really?
So prior to that, I was unmedicated and undiagnosed.
Holy shit.
Um, and what actually, I think I mentioned this in my podcast, but what eventually was a turning point was that I started hallucinating,
Mm.
and I started to become into what's called a psychotic state, where I was hallucinating a grim reaper, and this grim reaper
Yeah,
was following me around.
your tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. I started seeing this reaper around and being like, wow, like, I like in my mind I knew it wasn't real, but
Okay, okay.
I would hear my name called to me,
Right.
and I would see this grim reaper standing in the corner of the barber shop I was working at.
Mm,
I would see it at home. I'd see it standing behind me in the mirror. And that's when I really realized that something was really wrong.
that's scary.
And then I needed medication.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Uh, taking that step.
Honestly, I couldn't have done it without my partner too. My current partner, like my fiance, like really
Really.
helped, yeah, helped pull me together and really get me on that right track. So,
So they're the
shout
reason.
out,
I see.
shout out to them for that for sure.
So they're the reason that you decided to take the medicine.
For sure. I would say, I mean, obviously for myself as well, but I really didn't want to ruin, I didn't want to ruin this relationship. And I knew that things were going on
Mhm.
that weren't okay.
Wow, that's good. You have a good thing going on. I was gonna ask you something. So okay, I remember. Bipolar disorder is not common or no. I mean, it must be common, but not known well. Well, it's not well known in Japan. I never heard of that before, and even though you translated it, I had still had no idea what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I hear often that it's very like stigmatizing the West. Is that true?
Uh, there's still stigma behind it for sure.
Uh-huh.
Is it as stigmatized as other areas? Probably not. I mean, where, mental health is approaching, uh, I think, a turning point as far as advocacy and um, awareness now more than ever. So
Mm. True.
there's still stigma behind it for sure.
Mm.
But there's a lot less than I think there ever was before.
Oh, good to know then. Like, I was worried that, well, if you hear like somebody, if you like somebody and they have bipolar or whatever, they'd be like, oh no, let's stay away from them or something. It's not that
There,
bad.
yeah, I mean, for sure there might be some people that think like that, but like,
Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense too.
I mean, fuck them, right? You know what I mean?
I see. Mm.
Yeah.
So my ex had this thing that, of course, she was medicated, but the symptom, or I mean, I guess I would say side effect of being medicated for her, I'm not sure if it's to you, it's the same, but was to lose interest in a lot of things that she used to be interested in. So that nothing makes her happy. She doesn't know what's normal, you know? Is that same
Right.
to
When I first started medication, that
you?
was
Mm,
definitely the case.
mm,
Until they say that it takes usually about a year of your body being on a medication to truly adjust. And when I first started taking the medication, I felt super dull. I felt
okay.
very disinterested in everything that I was interested in before. I became very disinterested in sex. Um, very disinterested in things that brought me joy. So that's definitely a
Mm,
relatable thing for sure.
really? She's been taking that meds for a while.
Oh yeah, maybe. I mean, it's probably different from person to person
Different from
too,
person
right?
to person, obviously, I guess. Yeah. Well, what is there like a something like that to you, like bad side effect that you from taking the medicine?
Yeah. So I mean, I've definitely had that side effect, but the side effect that I've experienced most is restlessness.
Mm,
So I think there's a medical term for it. I think it's called akinesia,
okay.
which basically means the inability to stay still.
Ah,
which is something I have. Like I need to pace a lot. I need to like walk around the room a lot. I have trouble sitting for long periods of time,
Okay.
and I need to move my body a lot in order to become comfortable.
Hmm.
When I first started it, it was like my legs were just out of control. Like
Okay.
they just felt like I was like super restless. You know, I'd be laying in bed, and my legs would be moving around, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's that. Thankfully for me, that's been really the only big side effect I've experienced. But it's definitely been something I've had to adapt to and become comfortable with.
Hmm. Depends on the person, eh?
Yeah,
That's not how I see. Um. What were we talking? Oh yeah, and thanks for opening up about it. And I know you are always open about it, which is good, I think.
yes,
And
yeah.
a lot. Have you like been contacted by people who maybe have listened to your podcast or maybe follow you on Instagram? People who have bipolar.
100%.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've had many people reach out who
Really?
are struggling with either bipolar disorder or struggling with anxiety
Oh,
or depression who want to talk about, you know,
great.
feel like people who are like, oh, thank you so much for posting this. It meant a lot to me. Stuff like that really, when I get those messages, I'm like, it reminds me that I'm on a good path, you know?
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
like I'm like this is what I like to see and this is what I want to hear, and I'm so thankful for the messages people send me
Mm.
in support or just to try and find similarity in,
Yeah, maybe you were trying to like just like being open about your stuff and like I don't know what you were trying to do, but but then that spread it spread to a bunch of other people, and maybe you didn't expect that, did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't expect it. I mean,
Great.
I would say I never expect when I post these sort of things that people are gonna, you know, reach
Yeah.
out and be like, wow, like, it's a really cool thing to happen though. It shows that, one person being open can spread that kind of help spread the destigmatization uh, of mental health.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. What about your? Do you want to talk about your son in Taiwan?
Yeah, so I have a 10, almost 11-year-old son who lives in Taiwan, and
Mm.
I think a lot of the times people think that that is people think I'm lying. People are
Yeah,
like, no way. That's yeah. People are like, oh, are you joking? Like I'm like, no, I'm serious.
that's a good
I have
fun fact to tell people. Like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a son who's half Taiwanese, and his mom lives in Taiwan. It's somewhat of a complicated story as far as how it happened, but
Okay.
I, after the strokes that I had, I ended up moving back to Calgary, Alberta, from Vancouver,
Right.
and Fox, who's my son,
Hmm.
his mom, her dad ended up dying, so she ended up moving back to Taiwan to help take care of her mother. So
Right.
that's just how it's been now for uh, quite a while, six
Mm.
or 7 years, I think now.
Mm.
Um, that he's lived in Taiwan, and it's weird because we video chat and we see each other often, but I haven't seen my son in person
Haven't like
in
never.
haven't seen him in 7 years.
Fuck. Oh wait, 7 years.
Uh,
Ah.
so quite a long time. I haven't seen him in person, but I want to make it out to Taiwan and visit him, and
Ooh.
I think that would be a really cool experience.
Yeah,
Not only just to see him, but to go to Taiwan would be neat.
make sure to stop by in Japan if
Oh,
possible.
definitely. Yeah, it's funny. His mom actually lived in Japan for 6 years.
No way.
So
Where?
his uh,
You don't
one
remember?
of the I don't remember one of the regions that was affected by the tsunami.
Okay, I see.
Um, but she's completely fluent in Japanese.
Whoa.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, which is kind of cool. It's like if I was ever to meet them in Japan, she could be my she could be my guide.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can fully enjoy Japan when you have a guide. My
Yeah.
friend, a lot of my friends speak, well, not all of them, but speak Japanese. But my best friend didn't. He lost motivation in speaking Japanese because I was there with him all the time. So I was like the
Oh
translator,
yeah,
which
you're the translator. Yeah.
that's cool. And you say you study Japanese for a bit.
Yeah, for probably I'd say about a year's worth.
Mm.
Um,
Well, you're interested
I'm
in
very
stuff.
what got me into it?
Yeah, yeah.
J Rock actually.
Really?
Um, so yeah, I'm sure you're probably very familiar with this band called Asian Kung Fu Generation.
Oh, you like that band?
I like that
Mm.
band a lot. Um,
Cool.
I got that's actually what kind of got me into like always had an interest in Japanese culture through
Mm.
stuff like Shintoism.
Right.
Um,
Good
but
choice.
I found Asian Kung Fu Generation. I was like, man, this music is fucking sick. Like, this is awesome. What are they saying? And that's what got me into trying to learn Japanese.
Yo, that got me
Um,
into learning English. Like, oh, what are these bands saying?
yeah, I mean that's the power of music, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just kind of went from there and started, listening to more rock bands and
Mm.
um, learning, katakana and hiragana. Um, but never really got into kanji because it's obviously there's like 20,000.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different thing. And a lot of people say it's the most difficult thing.
Yeah, I'd believe it.
Mm. Cool. You want to hear my truth and a lie?
Always. Let's have it. Let's hear it.
It's not that exciting, but we'll see. Okay. One, I'm obsessed with butterflies. I can't love them enough. Two, I have a thing for rubbing alcohol on my cuts. Like when I slide and get injured or something, I love like putting alcohol. Like, I enjoy the pain.
Yeah.
And the third thing, I used to study English watching Hannah Montana. I know you want
Honest,
the three to be true, right?
I think the three is a lie. Actually,
You
the
think
third
so?
one is a lie. Yeah.
No, it's actually true. So you have to
Is
guess
it?
again.
So it's either butterflies or I'm going to say butterflies
Yeah,
is the
but
lie.
I hate butterflies, so that's the lie. But yeah, I mean, I don't tell a lot of people, but yeah, I used to when I was like maybe uh 14 or 15. There was like this channel called Disney Channel on TV, and they used to show all these like Disney movies and shit like that. And I watched Hannah Montana and I enjoyed it. And I just started downloading that in the original, the English version, and I
Yeah.
practically just um, tried to imitate the impressions.
That's really
Yeah,
funny.
that's one of the beginnings. Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm not ashamed of it. You got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. No, exactly.
You got to start
That's
somewhere.
better there than nowhere else. I mean, you know.
But then I mean, I'm sure you heard me saying this in the first or second episode, but like I developed my English using, music and South Park and all that kind of, stuff, punk rock. And
Mhm.
but I had a friend who speaks English well, and she actually studied with all this Disney stuff. So apparently when she met some English speaker, he told her, "You sound like you talk like a Disney princess." So it really shows what you studied with. And I met
Yes.
somebody who talks like anime, So
That's really funny.
I hope I don't sound like Hannah Montana.
I can't say I've ever watched Hannah Montana, so I'm not sure.
It's like it's like you can easily imagine. It's like a Valley Girl type shit.
Yeah, you're not a Valley girl. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, I love doing impressions sometimes, but yeah. So that was mine. There's nothing more to dig into though. So yeah, I was gonna ask you, like I forgot to ask you when we were talking about Skinhead. Do you like This Is England, the show and the movie?
I love that. I love that show and movie.
Oh man, I love
Um,
the show. Um, okay, so yeah, who's your favorite?
ah, um,
There's so
fuck
much
me.
going on in that show. I mean, obviously
There's so
movie
much.
too, but the show just
There's.
like
I think. You go first and let me think about it.
I like Combo and I like Woody. Like Woody might be the my favorite, but Combo really like as a character, he really just like had a lot going on and made everything interesting. And he's very human, even though he
Yeah,
used to be this evil person. He's trying to better himself, but you know what happens. And yeah, so those two.
yeah. I think I would probably agree with Combo
Mm,
because um, he just yeah. I think he's very human, and I
mm,
think
absolutely.
he's very fallible. Like he's had a lot of problems,
Mm,
but tries to make redemption, and I think that's a really interesting story uh, for the show. But I mean, like all the characters are great. I think
that's true,
the
except for
movie
Sean.
really said it. Yeah, exactly. Fuck Sean.
We hate Sean. I guess great actor, but yeah, I mean, well, they needed it. Like they needed him, but in the
Yeah,
movie, they
yeah,
absolutely needed him.
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, but Woody is one of my favorites because he's funny and he's a good role model. He didn't fuck up a lot. I mean,
No, no,
everybody fucked
he.
up. He was always truthful and loyal and
Yes, very
such
true.
an emotional series. Have you watched? So the same guy, same director made a new. I'm not sure how new it is. Series called Virtue or something like that.
No.
I heard it's really good, and I haven't watched it, so I wonder if you did. But I guess you didn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, those are, I think, some of the best films that have come out. And This Is England, the film, and then the TV show are some of the best things that have come out in a while.
Hmm. Which series? Which episode? Not episode. Season did you like?
Of, I think I prefer. So movie aside, because I think the movie was my favorite one.
Okay.
But probably the first season, which
So
is
it's
80.
84 or something like that. 80. No,
Yeah, something like
86.
that.
86.
86. That's right. What about you?
What happened in 86?
Oh God, I'd have to go I'd have to go through it again.
Yeah,
I
because I
just
can't.
remember that being my
Mm.
favorite.
I like 92, but that's my least favorite, I think, because at that point everything was focused on uh people's relationships and human connection, which is great. But I think one of my favorite scenes is from. You remember when Woody ran into Milky and the crew,
On
and
the street, right?
yeah, and Woody was with his new girlfriend, and
Yes.
just like such an emotional like acting and scene. That
Oh
was
yeah, that's
oh
really fantastic acting. Like,
that whatever the season that was, that's my favorite. I think 88 or 86, probably
yeah, I think it's 88, yeah.
88. Oh, and yeah, they always come. So when you when you start hearing the piano music, then, Ludovico,
Yeah,
the Italian piano guy, and you always know, oh, okay, this is that. There's always the
definitely.
recipe. But they did it really good though.
They did.
And you also like Trailer Park Boys?
I love Trailer Park
And
Boys.
Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, like I was saying to you when we talked before at some point, like I started watching that show and I think it's second season.
Damn, it
So
was
it's
on TV.
pretty. It was on TV and it was pretty new.
90s?
Uh, no, it was the 2000. I think
Oh,
2000,
something.
maybe 6 or 7 or something like that. I
Okay.
think. And yeah, I remember watching it, and I was cycling through the TV one day, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?
What the fuck is this?
What is this?" And I watched one episode, and I was like, "That was weird." And then I saw it again on TV one day, and then I watched it again, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty funny."
Hooked. Hooked.
Hooked. Yeah, it's Trailer Park Boys is a Canadian classic. When I think of Canada, I
Canadian.
think of Trailer Park Boys.
Absolutely. When I think of Canada, I think of Trailer Park Boys and the band Blasphemy. All the cool stuff come from
Oh
Canada.
yeah,
Anyway, first time I watched Trailer Park Boys was before I was advanced in English. But my American friend, before I went to Canada, showed me the first episode when Cyrus shows up to the park
at
in
the
the
trailer park. Yes, yeah.
The first episode, and he showed me this, and I didn't really understand, but he showed me that, and like after it's done, he was like, "Okay, this is Canada." Like right before I went to Canada, I was like, "Okay." I didn't understand anything, but fine. I didn't
Yeah,
dig it. I didn't think it's interesting or funny because I didn't understand. But after I came back from Canada, I heavily got into the series. I didn't watch the anime series, but the rest is just absolutely funny. And people think it's super boring or super funny. You one of them, either.
yeah. It's either or for sure.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think you have to have a sense of humor to really appreciate Trailer
Hmm.
Park Boys and a lot of the Canadian culture associated behind it,
Right.
especially on the east coast of Canada, like where I live. Right,
Okay.
um, Trailer Park Boys are considered to be like
Cool.
kind of
Sure.
royalty.
Great. So I have to mention this again, even though I told you when we Skyped before. Trailer Park Boys is not an equivalent of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Americans. Because Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Elise loved it, but she showed me a bunch of stuff, and she's like, "Oh, this is like Trailer Park Boys. Why you don't like it? Because it has all these people just assholes. Not they don't have the sense of just family, brotherhood, friendship type stuff. They don't learn anything. But in Trailer Park Boys, everybody is all
There's a family.
the family, and there's always this tight concept of being good friends to each other. So stop mixing up Trailer Park Boy with Sunny in Philadelphia. That's what I had to say.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's a lot of similarity between them at all.
They just swear a
And
lot and do fucked up things.
yeah, exactly. Like you said, I mean, Trailer Park Boys is very family oriented, which is a weird thing to say about something where people are screaming "fuck" and, and everything else. But it is a very family oriented kind of show, and like you said, friendship based. And I think that's what makes it so relatable for a lot of people to want to watch.
That's true. And also, like, it's I think the reason they're popular is like people who have shitty life can watch it and like, oh, my life is not that shitty. Thank God, because I
For
always do
sure.
that. I always do that. Okay, mine is not bad.
Yeah, it makes you reflect, right?
So, what's your plan today?
Like after the podcast,
Yeah.
gonna go drink some coffee
Mm.
and then just chill out at home. I think go to a cafe for a bit and yeah, just chill. To be honest, it's pretty rainy out here today. It's been a
Mm.
rainy couple of days, so probably won't be outside for much longer. But
Do you want to say how the interview went last time?
yeah, the interview went well.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I got the job.
Thank God. Nice.
Yeah,
Is it close?
um,
Is it close to your place?
it's a 5 minute walk.
That's amazing.
Yes, so just not a lot of travel associated with having to get there, which is
Mm.
beautiful. Yeah, I'm really excited.
I want to have you again on the podcast, but I think I'm going to wrap this up because if it gets too long, I think people are going to lose interest.
That's definitely what happens. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up, and we can definitely do another podcast where we chat about a whole bunch of different other stuff too.
Excited for our friendship.
Indeed.
I actually like maybe if I didn't mention, but I only met you because I followed your Instagram at some point, maybe 2-3 years ago. I'm not sure
Mhm.
at what point you recognized me. What did you when like what did you think of me, or like how did you recognize me?
Like online?
Yeah, online.
I think I think you had liked maybe something that I posted, and I
Uh-huh.
clicked on your profile, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool art."
Oh
Because
yeah.
you have a lot of art on your profile, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! Like I'm gonna follow this person."
Okay.
I didn't know anything obviously about you, but I was like, "Yeah, this is sick. I'm gonna follow." So
Cool.
that's kind of how I
Mm,
think our friendship developed there, and
that's great.
over the years, it's just steadily improved.
Yeah, I kept commenting on your shit and just messaged you. Hey, how's head tattoos work? How's the
Yeah,
healing? Because I was thinking about getting a head tattoo, and yeah, we can talk about that the tattoo thing. We didn't even touch about it, right? We
yeah,
touch it.
exactly.
I guess I'm gonna ask you about it in the next episode sometime.
Sounds
Um,
good.
Thank you for being on my podcast, and I'll just end the recording. But let's see, we can talk a bit after. Let's see, how do I do that? Anything you wanted to say before
Before you
you?
end,
Yeah,
um, just thanks for having me on the podcast, and this has been a good experience, and I'm happy to be involved and help help promote you, and uh, yeah, it's been great. So thanks so much.
thank you. So everybody, see you later.
Bye.